Welcome back to the Better Business Podcast. We thank you for tuning in. Guest speakers here, Mike and Rob. Thank you for tuning in. We want to discuss this topic about kicking off your career. And one of the most important topics as we all enter back into school season now is college worth it? So we're going to have a discussion around that, talk between Rob and myself, some of our experiences that we've dealt with in college, and kind of some of that post experience from college in our businesses and work ethic. And we're just going to have a conversation about that. So thank you for tuning in. Rob?
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
And the question of the evening, is college worth it? Maybe if you could kind of talk about some of your experiences in college, how that relates to some of your experience outside of colleges, and kind of give us your opinion on what you've been through, and is college really worth it?
Yeah, for sure. I got lots to say on the subject, and I could do a whole podcast on college separately from this, but I don't think I could do it without my resentment leaking into it, so we'll try and keep it a little shorter today so that you don't get too much resentment, dear listener. Some of the issues that I have with colleges, I'll talk about a little bit, but honestly, this is an individual decision, for each person to go through, right? And what I would want to do is just be the voice to say, don't assume that you have to go, right? I think the problem is that a lot of kids just get pressure on them. I know that's how I felt. You have expectations put on you, especially if you do well in school. I was top of my class, even if it was a small class. I was still top of my class, and they had a lot of expectations. My parents had expectations. And so, to me, it wasn't really a decision am I going to school? It was, where am I going to school? Right. And I know a lot of people from my generation that, had similar feelings as that. And I think that you need to take a step back and ask yourself, am I actually going to college, before you worry about where you're going to college? Don't assume that it's a given. Figure out if it's right for you. Most kids fail out of college because college wasn't right for them. They weren't going to be a good fit for it. They don't like the academic aspect of it. I don't like studying. I did well in school because I was a fast learner and didn't have to put a lot of time into studying. I've been blessed and fortunate for that. If I didn't have the, just the ability to learn and retain knowledge the way I do, and actually had to put in more time studying, I wouldn't have been good in school because I just didn't want to do it.
Yeah. And for our viewers, a lot of, myself included, and our friends went to Rob to help us pass college. So keep that in mind too while we discuss this.
Yeah. Whatever, it's many years removed, so I'll admit this, but I used to collect a little bit of money to help people with their business finance tests, and used to run a little racket right out of the library.
Whatever you could.
Whatever
you could. A little entrepreneur from the side.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I would say, am I going to school? Start there. Figure out, is it actually a good fit for me? Is more school, does that sound good to me? If that doesn't sound good to you, don't do it. Just figure out something else to do. It's not a time to have shame in your life. Don't feel you should be ashamed of going off to do something more physical or labor oriented. You should be thinking about that. Would I rather have the real world experience, get some skills and expertise behind me, or is more academic, kind of research, knowledge based work? Is that really what I want to go and do? You have to at least think a few steps ahead there, because you have to realize going to school, they're going to have a degree for anything you want to do, but not everything you want to do really requires a degree. And that's becoming more and more true, especially as even with software, for example, you'd be better off going to a coding boot camp than you would be going to get your computer software bachelor's degree,
Yeah. No, you make a great point there, right? And the skill set from one end, and then the academic side. So it's two edges of the same sword. But let's kind of take a step back, and we'll say, for just someone in general, we'll say general occupation, not sure, what are some of the benefits of going to college, right?
Yeah, so the benefits, I would say, particularly if you are going to do something business oriented, but if you don't know that, what you can count on doing at college is making friends. you should put in effort in networking. I didn't necessarily do a lot of like kind of like just more professional networking. I was more so, like we met a lot of people because we would go out and party with other college kids. That's what a lot of college kids do. You get plenty of networking done that way. I would recommend that if you're going to go to college and spend the money on it, you should take it a little more seriously as far as like trying to actually like more professional networking while you're there. So even with your professors, there's lots of events that they hold at colleges where you can do like dinners and stuff with people who are affiliated with the school. It's a good way to meet alumni, and alumni are people who are older than you that have money and can help you if you're going to be like starting a business, right? So it's things like that that I would say definitely consider going into it. Looking back on it, that's something that I wish I had probably done a little bit better just because of how much it did cost me. It's like that was kind of value that I could have gotten out of school that I just kind of missed, while I was there.
No, true. And to add on that as well, I think one of the strongest aspects of college is kind of more like the discipline route, right? Before it's like, hey, no one really, maybe you cared about high school, maybe some people didn't, but with college, you kind of need that degree to kind of really specialize in what you're doing. So it did teach you some level of discipline. But I think over those 4 or 5 years, however, whatever program you do to choose, is really to determine your strengths and weaknesses. Right. Okay.
Yes, that's right.
I'm terrible in history. I'm terrible at writing.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe I'm not going to be in content creation or something along the lines of that. Right. Maybe I find another route. So it's really important to kind of, if you do the college route, discipline yourself, but at the same time, find out your strengths and weaknesses within the program to kind of use those skill sets beyond college. So I think that's one thing that you wouldn't learn necessarily not going, just because you don't know.
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
Like if you don't go to college and don't hold yourself accountable, you're actually putting yourself in a worse situation.
That's right.
If you were to go to college. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
So it's another thing. So.
Yeah, and that's something to be considered. Is like it is a time in your life where you're going to be trying to mature. So if you don't go to college, you should have a backup plan. Like kind of the rule that I have for my boys who are very young. They're 5 and 2 right now, right? But when they get there, college is going to look a lot different. So it's hard to say like what colleges will be like at that point in time. But what I want to just instill in them is you're welcome to do anything that you want to do when you graduate high school, as long as you have a plan. And I'll help you do the plan. But there's got to be a plan in place. And if your plan is to like stay home and work or whatever, that's fine. I'm not going to like, you're welcome to stay unless you've like really angered me,
right,
then I might kick you out. Yeah. But no, I want to keep my door open to them. Like where it's like, you guys can stay. I know, I get it. Like I was there where it was like, I moved out right from college. I probably would have been better off if I hadn't right away, but it worked out in the end. So it's fine, and then, but I want the same thing for my boys where it's like, I want you to make the choice, and I'll be here to support you in what you do, just as long as you're making a choice. But on your note about the kind of the more generality of those early college years, I think that's really good for people who want to go to, maybe college is your journey that you picked for yourself. Like you don't have to worry about the financial means. And so for you, it's just like, well, it's something to do for 4 years, get something that might be useful, right? I can appreciate that for kids who are in that position. So that I think that works really well for you, where you, like you said, you can try out like a few different things. What am I actually good at and interested in? Like, what's the intersection of those two things? If that's not you, and maybe you are a little worried about the financial aspect of it, maybe you take some time off from school, you work a job in your hometown or a town nearby, and you kind of like reflect a little bit about like, okay, well, maybe you do or don't like the thing you're doing. Don't discount the value of doing like a technical institute or something like that, like doing a shorter program where you're just going to do like, whether it's like a coding boot camp or like an actual technical college, but a 1 to 2 year program where you'll just get the technical skills for what you're trying to do. Because you don't necessarily need to figure out that you're bad at like the exploring the universe class, right? Like it's like, okay, maybe I'm not that interested in astronomy. It's like, that's all right. If you're just here because you want to be a plumber or, do some like lighter engineering that doesn't require a 4-year degree, it's like you can go to a technical college and just be there for 2 years focused on the thing that you know that you want to do, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind sitting through an exploring universe.
Yeah,
just one more. I'm good for one class.
It was awesome.
And you mentioned kind of talking about your kids and kind of discussing, hey, if you have a plan in place, I want to kind of keep that door open So let's go on the other side of the pendulum here and talk about why college wouldn't be worth it,
Yeah.
right? So let's
Right.
kind of talk about some of those aspects there.
Yeah. So this is where I would caution people to think ahead financially. Like I was an 18-year-old. I by 1 year I missed a program at my school, my high school. They would have given me a sponsorship for being number one in the class to go to any school in Maine. They did away with that program, I think, the year before I graduated. So because I missed that, I was like, all right, well, I'm not too worried about going to school in Maine then. So like I'll look for other options. And that's how I ended up coming to Massachusetts. Now, the thing that I didn't think about at the time was the added cost of doing the out of state tuition because it didn't seem that bad on paper, but I was also only 18 and I'm thinking like, well, I'll get financial aid. I'll borrow money if I need to borrow money, but I was also expecting like that I would get like scholarships for going to school and things like that. And that, a lot of things like, can I get most of it paid for without having to worry about paying it back? So, you just kind of like you're 18 and you just start going down this road. And then next thing you know, you're signing loan forms, you know what I mean? And then it's like, okay, those are future payments that come out of the income that you were going to earn, right? So if you think that, all right, because I went to school, I'm gonna make, I had unrealistic expectations even in that department. Today's salaries, like I don't know, maybe you get out of school and you can make between $30,000 and $60,000 based on like what industry you're getting into. But you think like, okay, I'm going to get $50,000 a year because I went to college. Do the math on what the opportunity cost of is not going to college because you could get $30,000 a year not going to college, and then you eliminate that loan payment. So how much money are you going to have to borrow
What are
to
you
go to
going to
school?
net? So
That's
like,
right,
yeah.
exactly,
So and
yeah,
definitely have that discussion for yourselves. I think the financial strengths, if not the number one drawback to college, is sit down with someone who knows finances and actually forecast some of those payments. One of the things that I did before even going to college, I went to a state school here in Massachusetts. I was comparing what it would cost me out of school to go to Northeastern with minimal loans, minimal grants, or going to a state funded program, UMass Lowell, and the cost difference was like life saving, right? So even before going to college, I sat down and I was actually running the numbers, saying, "Hey, this is actually 3 times as much as it's going to cost me per month when I graduate in, we'll say, 4 years, compared to if I go to this school, right?" And at that time, again, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I did business because my mom works in finance, right? So I didn't really have that kind of option. I was like, all right, I was put into this program saying, hey, she's doing really well. I think that might be the path for me, right? But it not be might be that might not be for everyone. So I think that the financial strength of college is definitely one of the most financial strengths, and I think if you do choose not to go, obviously the planning perspective is going to be very important, right? So we're young, we're like young 20s. And I think if you don't decide, play it, and we discussed earlier on the podcast here with strengths and weaknesses and kind of more of like a trial and error, right? And a lot of the things that I've been with throughout my career is just going out and trying something, right? You can't not go to college and then not do anything just because now all of a sudden you're at a disadvantage compared to all the people that went to college that might have similar goals in you and you don't have that credibility, right? So that's one drawback to not going to college is the skill set and credibility, but at the same time that gives you a leg up on trial and error on something that you're specifically interested in or something that you're planning on or some kind type of program or something that you're working on and that's your goal, but you have to do that and you have to take action.
yeah, 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 exactly. That goes nicely into the next point, which would be like getting to that first role. Like what are you going to do to land that fish, right?
Yeah.
So some advice that I have there is kind of like what you were just saying is like with the trial and error, it's good to take that approach. First of all, don't assume that you're first. We don't live in a world anymore where, and I always talk with my parents about this, and Lauren, my wife, she talks with her parents about it too. They don't understand the difference in the world today sometimes where we don't have the same company employee relationship that we used to. no one expects that you're going to be a loyal employee for 20 years anymore, because the company is not going to be loyal to you for 20 years. Like
Mm-hmm.
the problem that we've gotten into now with that relationship is that if you're an employee who's not moving up the ladder, what you're actually doing is you're becoming a more expensive seat essentially for the
Mm-hmm.
company, where like you're going to be doing the same thing each and every year, and you basically age yourself out of the job, because you get to the point where even if I don't give you good raises, even if I only give you the 2 to 3% every year, well, I've given you a 2 to 3% raise every year for 10 years, 15 years. You just get too expensive, and it's like, oh, I'm just going to hire a college kid to go do this job for you, or I'm
Yeah.
just going to replace you with like an AI program or something like that, right? Like that's the world we live in today, where if you're working for a big corporation, you're not a person, you're a number, and and like that's just the sad truth of it.
Yeah.
Corporations are just not personable places to work. You will feel personable with your team that you work with, but they will have decisions pushed down on them. It doesn't matter who your direct boss is. Your direct boss will get things pushed down on them that they just have to do. So they might not like it if they have to let you go, but they'll still let you go.
Yeah. And now we're actually seeing a lot of not so much boomers, but we'll say like senior employees getting those mandatory retirement packages or being
Mm-hmm.
let go because of
Yep.
their expense.
Yep.
So essentially, I'm seeing more and more that individuals who have been in these corporations, they're the best of the best, but they can't afford these employees anymore. And guess what? They have to go out on their own and start the same kind of
Yep.
similar business.
Yeah.
So we're actually seeing more and more of that. But their age gap is maybe 10 more years of lifespan until they're actually like, hey, kick back and let's hit the
Yeah.
beach. But they're in a situation now that they've been there for a long time and they're making a lot of money, and a lot of these corporations are like, all right, see you later.
Mm-hmm.
The relationship's been great.
Yeah.
Now what?
Yeah.
Know?
That's right. Yeah. And because you deal with a lot of turnover, you're kind of like all the relationships within the corporation are always changing too. So even the people that you might like count on, like, oh, they wouldn't let go of me because like, this subset of people knows how important my work is. It's like one by one, those people are going to leave, even if you're not. And eventually just no one's there that actually cares about the job that you do anymore. Right. Because you're just Jane Smith, like, that's been here forever. And you're just like the last of a cohort that's already all gone, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So anyway, just a word of caution there for the new employee is, don't feel like you owe the company anything. Like, you should just be focused on like you said, just trying new things. It's okay that your first role isn't going to be your last role. It's an unrealistic expectation that you're just going to go in and have your dream job day one, and that's what you're going to do the rest of the time. Most people, like, and I have this experience to some degree myself, but like your dream job will drop right on your lap, and then you'll be like, oh, well, maybe this isn't all that it was like chalked up to be, and you're going to evolve as a person. Your vision of yourself 5 years from now is a target that is always 5 years ahead of you and is always changing. Like, so anytime you get to that point, like you might achieve what you set out to do 5 years ago, but now you already have a new 5 year vision for yourself, and you're already a different person than you were the 5 years ago, right? And you're going to be a new person in the next 5 years. So just don't have like lofty, certain expectations of like how things are going to go. Just like stay pretty open to it, try new things. When you do, when you're getting out there, some things that I would do to look for my first role is think about the industry that I'm interested in. Look at companies that I like in that industry. So maybe I really like shoes. You go look at Nike, you look at Adidas, you look at like these different shoe brands. Then you look at like some new disruptive shoe brands that are like maybe they're doing like earthing shoes or something, right? But they're like maybe doing a similar like Nike style, and you're like, well, that company's like young and hip, and like they might hire me, and then I don't have to work for the big Nike corporation. I can work for this like more of a like an underdog like startup situation where I will be able to get more responsibilities early on, right? So those are just things to think about. Corporations are good environments if you just want to have your corporate job, be comfortable, you know what you're going to do every day, as long as you're okay with the fact that like you don't ever plan on staying with the same corporation for more than 5 years. Like if you do, that's fine. but don't have that as part of your plan because you don't want to be blindsided when they fire you.
100%. And everyone's path is completely different. Like nothing's ever planned. You might think you have all your ducks in a row, and then 5 years from now, you're going to be in a complete situation. But from everyone I know, from people who are hit rock bottom, or people who are at the high top, they didn't expect to be where they were, right? So basically, what they did was they put the work that was needed and necessary to succeed, and regardless if they were climbing the corporate ladder or they wanted to have the number one bakery in town, they were doing what it took to succeed. And then 5 years from now, and then you just don't know where you're going to be, right? You could have five bakeries. You could be the CEO of whatever company downtown, right? So you have to kind of keep an open mind at it, but you're always going to have to, regardless if you do go to college or you don't go to college, you have to continuously learn, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's very important because a lot of people get stagnant sometimes and they're not learning, they're not getting a better skill set, they're not using tools to kind of make their life situation easier when they wouldn't even know about it.
Yeah, yeah. That's perfectly said there. Yeah, you when you're just starting out, you want to be able to like pick your head up and look around you every once in a while. But it's good to just like keep your head down and just like work at something.
Yeah.
Like don't get impatient. It's easy to get impatient early on, but don't. Just work hard. Just work hard. It will like commit yourself. Once you maybe you land that first role, and you're like, okay, this is interesting to me. Commit yourself to it. Just do the best job that you can at it because that's how you'll learn. And learning, even if you're not going to college, is still critical for just one, becoming a better person, but two, making yourself valuable in the workforce, right? Because if you have the ability to learn, people pick up on that. They like that because one of the things that I look for in people is like, what you know how to do is all well and good, but can I teach you to do new stuff? You
Yeah.
know, that's really important to me. Is like people that can just be like flexible, like adapt to their situation. They're like kind of quick on their feet, with just like thinking and things like that. So yeah, that's one thing that I would say is just like always be looking for ways to learn. It doesn't take a institution to go learn at, right? You can teach yourself so much by like I teach myself to do new things all the time just by picking up a book or looking at a YouTube video. Like
Yeah.
you can find a how to on anything you
Yeah.
want on YouTube, and you watch a couple of those, and then you just practice a few times, and then like lo and behold, it's like you're basically an expert.
Yeah.
So there's lots of opportunities to learn, more and more learning opportunities to come. There's like cheaper alternatives every day for like online learning, whether it's like I forget what LinkedIn's version is, but LinkedIn has like their own learning prep platform.
Yeah.
And
Coursera's
all,
a lot of
right.
free
And there's,
stuff on there.
right, exactly. And there's all other sorts of programs doing that now. So there's free learning everywhere. So just like start watching videos, reading books, listening to lectures, whatever it is you're going to do. But there's lots of ways to learn. So just keep sucking in the knowledge, and and then just commit yourself to things. So you want to learn and you want to commit, and that's like the most important stuff early on. And then you just have like what I would recommend is having like an annual check-in where you're like, all right, I'm going to reflect on where I'm at now versus like where I'm aiming to be. And this kind of again brings us to that next point of like you're going from early career to like that mid career, and you want to like you want to be like looking ahead to your long term vision. So you want to have that vision of like, who do I want to be 5 years from now? Like, it's kind of a silly interview question. I personally would not ask that of someone. Probably, I think it's something that they need to do the work on themselves. I don't, because for me, it's like I get the point in the question is probably more so from the perspective of like I want to see how you think about it than like I caring what the answer is, right? But there's lots of questions I can ask someone to like kind of get a feel for how they think. Like I don't and I don't want to catch someone off guard if they haven't thought about it because, like, it's like, yeah, I'm not going to not hire you because you haven't thought about where you're going to be in 5 years. It's
Yeah.
not something that everyone thinks about,
100%.
like,
And regardless of who you are, you're going to have ups and downs, regardless of what process and what direct path you have. One thing that I've like always realized too, and it's you can't get discouraged, right?
Right.
So you're and I think that, and it's always been true to me. So as long as you're disciplined, you kind of stick to the path, you put all your work in, right? And say you're putting in all this work going, we'll say one result. I'm going to do this every single day, but you're not getting the results that you're getting. It's getting discouraging. You're still working. You're like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. But I've always been experienced with that. Hey, I put the work in. I go down this way. I might not get the result directly ahead, but it always comes from another area, right? So you're like, I'm focused here, and then all of a sudden, you get the result that you're looking for in a completely area that you didn't even think it was going to be available, or complete even that area.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You reminded me, one of the other things I wanted to talk about with that early stage career part also was like how to build credibility.
Mm.
So, and just searching for that first role, like I had mentioned, you look around in the industry, go look at job postings for a job that you're interested in, so you get an idea of what the responsibilities will be. Well, there's lots of job sites that you can go look at, like estimated salaries and stuff, so you can get all that information like pretty easily up front. Find the companies that you really care about, because the companies that you really care about, when you're applying to them, it will show in your application that you care. You'll be more willing to make the effort on, like, doing a better job on your cover letter, for example, things like that, and they'll pick up on it. It'll be easier when you're doing the interview if you're excited about the company, because you won't have to feign excitement. It's like it will come naturally, and then that will shine through. Interviewers pick up on that. If you're not excited, they're not going to hire you. Like, they're
Yeah.
all right, I'm going to hire someone who wants to do this job.
Yeah.
Thanks. But anyway, so you go through that part, you get that job. One of the things that I would recommend doing is, and it's in line with what we've been talking about, is just like commit yourself to it. Just do a good job. Demonstrate your value, that you can put in the work and do the job and get results for them, and then ask for more responsibility. You don't want to fall into the trap of being the eager beaver and like always asking for, well, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And it's like, well, you haven't done a great job at the things that I've given you to do. So maybe like do the same thing a few times to get better at it, and then I'll give you more. It's like it's hard when you're put in the position of like having to explain to someone like, I don't want you doing more. I want you getting better at the things I've asked you to do.
Yeah.
So on the other side of that, when you're the new employee, ask for more to do when you've mastered what you've been given to do.
Yeah. And that goes back to what we previously talked about, is kind of that persistence of continuously like learning and achieving new skill sets. Because if you're in that position where it's like, hey, I go to work, I get my work done, are you really getting like true enjoyment out of life?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of scraping from the bottom, doing the bare minimum, not benefiting yourself, and then every year goes by, you're doing
Mm-hmm.
the same thing. So I think that persistence of always achieving new goals and continuously learning, you'll feel more gratification in yourself.
Yeah.
Not so much your like work life, but like your positivity and your mental stability. I think learning new things and challenges, because those are the best times of the challenges, because when you're low, you don't know what feels great at the top,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then all of a sudden that happens, you're like, oh man, I feel like the man, so.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was just going to say too there, you don't want to, you don't want to get to the point where you're the person that's been sitting there for the 10 to 15 years, and you are being blindsided, right? And you're thinking back on all that time, and it's like, was I just coasting all this time? And like, you're far less likely to be in that position if you're doing exactly what you just said, where you're setting those goals for yourself each year. And it's like, because then you're holding yourself accountable to progress, right? So like the progress comes from achieving those goals, right? But by you giving yourself those goals, you're holding yourself accountable to like just making that incremental progress each year, so that 15 years in, rather than being the person you were 15 years ago, now obviously you're a different person outside of work, but just in your professional environment, you're essentially just the same goldfish you were that went into the tank 15 years ago. And you don't want to be the same goldfish. You want to be a beta fish or whatever, like an alpha fish. But yeah, exactly. So that 15 years, you can make a lot of progress if you get like it's the silly notion of like if you can be 1% better every day, right? It's like, well, if you could be 1% better even every year, 15 years later, you're 15% better than when you came in.
Yeah.
There you go. You demonstrated your value over 15 years. You're all those the 15 years of 2% raises are justified now. You're okay. We don't have to fire you.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and regardless to all you listeners, so regardless of what you choose, you will be all right. So it sounds like there's positive aspects from going to college and not going to college. And that's because every single person has a different path, right? What you might go into in your early career might not what you end up with.
Mm-hmm.
You might have 3 or 4 or 5 different careers over your lifetime, just because life's always changing, but you have to put the effort in. You have to be disciplined with yourself. You have to try new things. But the most important thing is you always have to continue to learn. Because if not, you're going to be outpaced by somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think the learning aspect and taking on new challenges brings even myself more positivity with me to help with my mental state to feel comfortable in the workplace and outside of the workplace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. Yeah, I think it's probably a good time to relate some of our own experience because you were just making me think about that with my own career. It's like I had a lot of different jobs, especially early on, and so I'll talk a little bit about that now. I know we've done our intro early in the podcast. I know we introduced like our kind of like professional backgrounds, but I'll recap some of that here. So when I got out of college, I actually went and worked in a cafeteria for a little bit. It was a corporate cafeteria at Raytheon in Andover, and I actually really liked that job. I did the deli, so I got in early in the morning, like 6 a.m., sliced meat, and did a bunch of other kitchen prep work until lunchtime, and then I just like would help do the serving during lunch, and then ended the day early, cleaned up, went home. I think we got done at like 2, so it was like 6 to 2, right? There was a lot to like about that job. Running a kitchen is awesome. It's good experience that I have with me now today doing the cafe, right? So I appreciate it from that perspective. I think a kitchen job or something similar, like I know I've heard people say everyone should have a sales job in their life, right? Well, I did one of those too, and we'll get to that in a second. I would say everyone should have like a kitchen job or something similar to that where you kind of like learn how a system works, right? Because then you can kind of think about like how do people come together in a team and work the same way that you would expect a system to work? How do you like systematize like people's effort? You know what I mean? And like think about like throughput and just like flow, like process flow. Yeah. So anyway, I did that for a little while. Had some interviews. I interviewed at a couple different places at the same time. So I actually went initially to go be a sales rep for an investment bank, broker dealer, Oppenheimer. And I did not like that at all. I did like 4 months there. Absolutely horrible. I did not particularly care for the people that I was working with, so that didn't help the situation. But I also just saw like the writing on the wall that was kind of going to be like a dead industry because they were still charging full service commissions, and even Goldman Sachs had already kind of moved away from that towards like we're just going to charge like a flat $30 per trade because you can't charge full service commissions anymore. It's all digital. It's like you're not doing anything.
Right.
Yeah. So that was kind of off putting a little bit anyway. And the other place that I had interviewed around that time ends up calling me. That company is called Axiom Valuation Solutions. So I started off my career like in a finance capacity doing that and doing the business valuations. And between the cafeteria job and this, I did forget I had one other job in between there as an accounting liaison, but I was really just processing like foreclosures and bankruptcies at a law firm. It was like a digital like paperwork job basically, and so I didn't really care for that either. That was just like a stopgap. That was like something that was like a stepping stone from doing like my like kitchen job. Just at the time just for money. Got a lot of experience out of that job. It's like more relatable experience out of that, like just the discipline, aspect of it alone, right, than some of the other stuff that I've done. But anyway, so I go to Oppenheimer, didn't like it. go to Axiom. So now I've landed at Axiom. That's probably like my first serious like finance job where it's like now I'm leveraging that degree I spent all that money on, right?
Yeah.
And I worked how many jobs? I did the cafeteria job, I did the accounting liaison job, and I did the sales rep job. I did those 3 jobs probably within a 1-year time frame of each other. I think within 1 year I went through all 3 of those. And then I get the job at Axiom, work at Axiom for 2 years, go to do the same thing for a larger company called RSM, which is a public accounting firm, but they have a consulting department. I worked in the consulting department doing business valuations, right? So did that for a couple of years, and then I exited that and I went into corporate FP&A working for Mimecast, and they're a cybersecurity company. I did a lot of awesome work at Mimecast. They brought me on to do the financial modeling for like their long-term forecast because I had all that, so for the business valuations, I did a lot of merger and acquisition stuff. I did a lot of like equity valuation stuff, right? So I had a lot of like purchase price allocation, merger acquisition experience from that. Mimecast leveraged that. They wanted me to help them because they were going to start doing some inorganic growth opportunities by buying other companies, right? So they were looking for cheaper companies that had like some sort of like value add for their product offerings. Like maybe it was like a security awareness training, right? Like we got a great platform for cybersecurity, so we're going to go look for a cybersecurity awareness company that we could buy. That was one of the first ones they did while I was there. It was called Atata. Great company. They had the best like little 2-minute clips. It was like the same work crew all the time, and they always had like stupid situations they were getting themselves into, like leaving a laptop while they went to the bathroom at like a Starbucks, and then like they end up getting like hacked, and then like they'd always make like a joke out of it and everything. But just like stupid, entertaining videos. They're like 2 minutes. Bought that company for I think $20 million. And from there they ended up doing like 6 more while I was there. Right. Awesome experience. Loved a lot of the people I worked with. Got to learn a lot. Even just about like relationship management. Like how do you balance what the sales team wants and what the R&D team wants? How do you put that all together in a financial model? How do you get them to see eye to eye on like what needs to be done, like bringing the room together, that sort of stuff? That was all really valuable experience there. And then similar to like what we were talking about earlier, things changed. People started leaving. All those great people that I worked with when I first got there, by the time I had left, there wasn't any of the original crew that like was there when I first joined the finance team. Like they were all gone. So I was like the last one to leave out of that cohort, and that was, I only worked there for not even, I think 4 years. I think it was just under 4 years. And then that's how fast turnover happens in corporations,
So it goes like this.
Yeah.
Now what do you do now?
Yeah. What do I do now? Yeah. So now then I moved to the consulting, right? So I started doing contract opportunities. I worked for a company called Resilience, who they are a CDMO, so a contract development and manufacturing company for life sciences, right? They are getting started here in the States, what a lot of other major CDMOs have done in Europe and China and other parts of the world. And again, a lot of awesome experience. Now Mimecast gave me all that cool like tech like experience. Now I'm getting all this like manufacturing experience, right? So like and the tech stuff's still useful here because there's like a lot of overlap and everything, with it being like a more like it's a newer like techie company itself. The fact that they're just trying to do like cutting edge life science stuff, right? Like technology is going to be a big part of what they're doing. So I really liked that. And then from there, it's been, I've still been doing consulting. I'm doing some like system implementation stuff like that now. I still do the FP&A consulting, but I'm doing this. I'm doing business stuff now, where I'm net green. I want to talk about this on a future podcast. I'm pivoting away from doing the crowdfunding portal because the funding portal is just proving to be too expensive. Even as cheap as I've got it to run, it's still just too much because it's just too slow of an industry right now. If obviously bigger crowdfunding companies are doing great and everything, but small companies trying to get into it, it's tough. So what I want to do is just build the investment network. I can still offer all the same services that we were going to offer anyway. Just I won't be the actual funding portal. but we're going to do all the same things with just helping people go through the whole investment process and business planning and whatnot. Right.
Yeah, like a business advisor.
Exactly.
Type deal.
Yeah.
Nice.
But the cafe, this is part of that, right? Because this is the pilot test for me to show people, like, look what I'm doing here with Roots and Roasts. I can help you do this, where structure the deal, engage friends, family, investment network, whatever, right? Help you kind of get established with how are you going to finance it outside of your if you have friends and family investors, how are you going to finance it otherwise? How are you going to structure your companies? What's your business plan going to be? That's all going to be part of that whole startup process of how are we going to do this? Then committing to doing it, and then help people figure it out from there. When you actually have to start operating, kind of getting those first few steps in place, help them get their accounting software up and running to make sure that they're not missing that stuff. So but at the end of the day, what's my full time job right now is I'm a part time dad and I'm a part time business owner, right? But running a cafe, I went full circle. 12 years later, I went full circle back to that cafeteria job that I got that I thought was just for money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And now you love it.
Yeah, love it. Absolutely love it. I loved it when I worked at a grocery store before college. And I look back on that now. I don't think for me staying in northern Maine would have necessarily been the right move. I think I was right to leave. But I look back at that and it's I could have just stayed there and worked at that fucking grocery store, man.
Probably own the grocery store.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And that's no one has a Plan Avenue, right? Unless you're a very wealthy family and you're tailored to take on the family business type deal.
Yep.
But even with me, similar background, I'll give you a short version of it. Came into the investment markets, studied business, have a master's in finance as well. My first job was just in a call center, big giant Florida, big fund company. And then we were just answering before, now everything, all the broker dealers are online, place your trades. But most of our clients were older and they didn't do everything on the computer. So they would call in and place all their trades for all their investment accounts. So I was doing that for the fund company, worked in accounting for a little bit, went to tax, and then one day a real estate company took me out to dinner and presented me a check, and I was looking at the check, and I was all right, I guess I'm going to start working for you. Just went from the finance route to the real estate route, and now I just opened up a property management company, Simply Living Property Management here in Quincy, and I do real estate throughout Greater Boston. So it's full circle, but you always just have to kind of keep learning, taking those opportunities because you don't know where you're going to be.
That's right. Yeah. We say full circle, right? Because it feels like you get back to where you started, but you're not back where you started because it's not the same place. It's a different place and time.
Yeah. And life is, everyone's oh no, you're getting older. You're not going to have enough time, but life is a very long time.
Yes.
So you have plenty of time
to
make the right decisions.
That's right.
And do whatever you want.
Yeah, and take a little time to explore if you're not sure. Kind of back to how we started this is if we're talking to you today and you're I'm not really sure what I want to do, it's go play around for a little while and figure it out.
Because you could always go to college, right?
Yeah. College is always going to be there to take your money.
Right. That's so true. But put a plan together, and always keep learning, right? Try to put the best path you can and understand the financial consequences of what your decisions are today, because it might not be the right decision and you're going to be dealing with that financial consequence for a long time. So really sit down and really figure out kind of where you are, who you are. And then as we mentioned, talk about some of your strengths and weaknesses and tailor to your strengths, right?
Yeah.
And find an industry that you envision, that you think you could do well with, and then put a plan together and make it happen. Those who put in the work, they come up, and then all of a sudden years go by, and then look who they are now. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah, and be patient. That's the other thing I would want to add. Yeah, be patient. I'm 35 years old and I'm still learning today to just be patient. But the only thing you're racing to is the grave. So don't rush it.
No
Take
rush.
your time.
So enjoy
just
those
take your
lows.
time.
Really enjoy those highs, because it's going to keep coming and going like this for a while.
That's right. Everything ebbs and flows.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for tuning in to Better Business Podcast. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.